All right. Hope everyone's having a nice weekend. Looking forward to doing another weekend update. To give you some context for the agenda today, we're going to be doing USDT, so Tether market cap dominance. So in essence, the percentage of stable coins as a overall proportion of the crypto ecosystem. So the higher that percentage of USDT dominance, in essence, the more people that are in stable coins as opposed to being deployed and in the market. And I think this is a good starting exercise to illustrate where I believe we are. Then I'm going to go through some Bitcoin high time frame on the weekly chart, low time frame on the daily chart, MicroStrategy, the Bitcoin mining ETF WGMI denominated in Bitcoin. And I think that's going to cover it for today, folks. Just a reminder, I'm not a financial advisor. Don't use this as any kind of financial advice. Nobody knows which way the markets are going to go except the markets, and we find that out after the fact. These things could go up, down, sideways. I'm just presenting my convictions as I have been for the last couple of years on Twitter, as well as about the last year and a half doing these videos. So with that, let's get started. So what I have up here is basically a weekly chart, and above the weekly chart, I've got an illustration, a picture illustration. This illustration here, which essentially is a schematic, it's a Wyckoff schematic that looks at what a macro distribution, some of the attributes in terms of price movements in a distribution phase. You can Google it, learn a little bit more about Wyckoff. But for now, I am simply interested in some commonalities between what a macro redistribution looks like and potentially where we are today as it relates to USDT dominance. So the gist of this exercise, folks, is this: is uh, is this. Let me pull this up here. So we're just looking at this chart. Forget the chart below. The closer we are to this area, this sign of weakness, this check back to the last point of supply, this bear flag type structure that you see, the closer we are to the end of that, the closer we are to the final leg of this distribution down. That then would correlate with money flowing out of stable coins, the final rush into the crypto ecosystem for a final expansive move, however long that takes. That's the thought here. And so I'm going to do an exercise that takes us through where I believe we are in relation to this chart. Okay. Are we here? Are we here? Are we here? Where are we? Where are we? And so I want to be closest to there. So, and again, this is my interpretation. This is not a fact, right? This is my interpretation. This is the exercise. And so let's minimize this chart a little bit. And let me just define the chart too really quickly for those that aren't very familiar with the terminology on here. So let's start on the left of the screen. Okay, we're going to start here. We're going to start with Tether dominance in an uptrend, right? Meets a preliminary supply area, this PSY highlighted. You get a check back and then you get a buying climax. One could assume at a buying climax in Tether dominance that money is flowing out of crypto, almost at an opposite blow off. So some type of uh, local bottom crash, whatever you want to talk about, a bear market level, buying climax, and you get an automatic reaction, and you get a secondary test, and then you get a sign of weakness as you move along in this phase B, and then you get an upthrust in this phase B, where the sign of weakness might correspond with, all right, bull market is back, money's flowing out of stables and into crypto. And up thrust in phase B, oh no, it's, we just got rugged. It's all over. And then you get, again, a move along in phase B, back down towards the low end of the range, and then you get an up thrust after distribution. So we've been distributing, you get an up thrust, you get a test, and again, you would expect another local type of low here in crypto. Anything up here, up thrust in phase B, up thrust after distribution, buying climax. These are, you would expect to see maybe bear market low here, check back. Could be another bear market low here. This could be a buying climax prior to a bear market low in crypto. Up thrust in phase B could be the true bear market low. Up thrust after distribution could be, after you've come out of that bear market, the first violent correction. These are just all different scenarios. You're seeing big drops at these phases at the upper end of the range essentially, and then you get a test, and then you get your final move out of distribution, this distributive top, and it starts dumping. Check back to a last point of supply, check back to the bottom end of the range, sign of weakness. You get the largest consolidation typically is in this area after it started dumping. Back into the last point of supply, sign of weakness, and then you want all this to break, right? And that's when money rushes out of stable coins and into the crypto ecosystem. Okay, so I defined what, in essence, that terminology means and how it should relate to the crypto ecosystem. Now let's pull up the actual chart. And let me minimize this a little bit. Try to maximize that, pull the RSI down. We'll use the RSI later. Maybe I'll just, we'll just hide that for now. Hide that for now because I'd like this to be the largest image on the screen. Okay, so what do we have here? Do we have any type of similarities in this schematic and what we saw up to this point with tether dominance, and any correlation between that and what happened in the crypto ecosystem? What happened in the crypto ecosystem is what I have highlighted yellow, okay? Yellow, 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 and yellow, okay? So going back to 2021, right? This isn't even on the distribution chart, okay? This is because this in essence was an uptrend, the beginning of the uptrend in tether dominance, okay? That is an uptrend, right? Uptrend. And so this is what we're looking for at the end of an uptrend to say, is that distribution? And then this is what we're looking for to say, is this the beginning of a downtrend? And so at the beginning of this uptrend, we saw Bitcoin all-time high in the spring of 2021, right? And then we had a range move into supply, that's kind of our supply block, if you will, order block that defines our first supply range. And then we had to move back down to the bottom end of this range. Didn't breach the bottom end of this range, right? Where it did here, but Bitcoin made a new all-time high here. Very interesting, right? Maybe that was, it should have been potentially a supply. And maybe this was some of the froth and fraud that was in the market, right? With all this paper Bitcoin and FTX doing things with, who knows, probably creating fake Bitcoin. That's just me speculating. I have no idea. But this chart may lend some credence to the fraud that was going on in the market, where the dominance, the amount of stable coins that were in the market was less than the previous all-time high, but price exceeded it, okay? And so maybe that was a good clue. Maybe that's something to bank for later, to learn, always learning. And so what do we have after Bitcoin hit this all-time high in the fall of 2021, in November 2021? We then had a reversal, back into this preliminary supply, right? And that's preliminary supply. And you had this flagging structure, right? These are flags, consolidations, whatever you want to call them. This is an impulse. This is an A, B, C, flat correction. A lot of you that have been following me following my videos, know that I like to kind of combine multiple elements in my analysis. And what did we have? We had a measured move, right? You know, I talk a lot about this pull, this impulse, this energy, this correction. Typically, you'll see equal to or greater than, and that's exactly what we saw here. That's pretty much equal to that flagpole coming out of there, maybe even a little bit more, broke out, and you reached a buying climax back in June of 2022. That corresponded with that equity market Bitcoin low. I think we got down to where did we get down to? 21? I don't remember, but we didn't get down to the 15 level. Anyway, that buying climax signified our first major low in equities as well as Bitcoin. And then we had an automatic reaction, sign of weakness in this phase B, and then a check back towards this range high in the fall of 2022. And that marked, this upthrust in phase B. That was the FTX low. Okay. And then we moved along, kind of bottom end of this range. We had an upthrust after that first distribution in June of 2023. But price was rallying, right? And then we had a consolidation, and then we had this test, a lot like, let me pull this back up here, a lot like this test we saw up here, up thrust after distribution. And at that level, remember that summer, that 6-month range between 30 and 25K, 25K support failed, went into the high 24s. That was simply a test on USDT dominance, and you did not get any type of confirmation or real reversal. That was simply a test. And we had a reversal through the bottom end of this range all the way down into January, where Bitcoin went from 25K all the way up towards the local highs. And so after that, we saw this bear flag type of structure, right? And Bitcoin checked back to 38K, and the ETFs were coming out, right? And this is this beautiful little bear pennant type structure on Tether dominance. ETFs were sell the news, it's over. But in reality, we were in this area, last point of supply. What was the supply in this? The last point of supply? Well, the supply was, much like the opposite of last point of support, right? This was the supply level. Look at all that price action that preceded it. Think about flipping this chart upside down. This was essentially reverse support. Last point of supply, could not breach that, and then you had a move out of that, break down of that bear pennant structure, and Bitcoin went on to make all-time highs, 73, 74K. Okay, that's where we are now. Let me clear up all these drawings. All right, so that's where we are now. From March, basically up until this summer, we literally have been just consolidating, and what I'm calling back to this last point of supply again. Back to this last, we have not gotten into this reverse support range, I'm calling it, right, which is a supply range. We have not broken into it. This has remained formidable, okay? Formidable supply. And so we've been consolidating, and we broke out of this structure in October. We're now checking back to it, kind of like where we are. If you can kind of see up here, I'm pointing at the diagram right at the end. And I believe what comes next is the real move down, okay? The real move down. On a larger time frame, we've got a pull, we've got, this bear flag. And so that's my expectation here, folks. That's my expectation. That's what I believe we're looking at. And this is massively bullish for the crypto ecosystem, specifically Bitcoin, which is what I cover the most, given my conviction. It's my largest conviction hold. So what else do we have here? This is RSI at the bottom. What else is going on and has changed dramatically since April of last year? Well, if we look at the moving average on RSI, We broke out above this moving average and just kind of check back, RSI, check back, losing some steam here, right? You've got this kind of rising wedge, and we broke out of it. Broke out of this rising wedge, checking back to the underside of this moving average, which is rejected. And now we're just consolidating under it. This is weakness. This is a sign of weakness for me, folks. This is a sign of weakness for me. SOW, sign of weakness. All right. Now, if this was looking, if we had broken back into this and we're consolidating somewhere, with this moving average curling up and looking like that, that would be a different story. That would not necessarily be a highest probability sign of weakness. That would be potential reclaim and gaining strength, which is not what's going on. Okay. So that's USDT dominance and my interpretation of what's going on in terms of the liquidity that exists inside the crypto ecosystem. Now let's go to a weekly chart of Bitcoin on the Coinbase chart. And this is really, really zoomed in. Let me zoom out just to kind of show you how I've constructed this chart on high time frames. And again, kind of the opposite of what we saw with the chart I just presented, right? Where I'm, in essence, claiming, this entire range was a reaccumulation with a spring, broke out of it. You get the sign of strength. We broke out of that. Trending impulse, and now consolidating. I'm interested to see what's going on in this area on a weekly time frame. This isn't a perspective that I've been sharing too much, and so that's what I'm going to zoom in on to share to see, is there anything we can surmise from what's going on here when we look at the power behind the move, so the RSI, as well as the price action itself, when we look at the key moving averages on a weekly time frame. And the EMAs I have up here, I've got the 5, I've got the 9, and I've got the 20. The 20 is the one that's below. The 9 is the second one, that blue one, and the purple one, the one that's the closest to the top, that's your 5, okay? And so what's going on right now and what's been going on with these moving averages, these key moving averages since the week of September 16th? Well, they're sloping up, folks. They're all sloping up. How many weeks have we been above the 5-week moving average? We have been, and I'm talking about closes, one so far, this week hasn't closed, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. In this entire range, have we ever spent 6 weeks above the 5 EMA? I don't know. Let's see. We were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks here. Week 6 dumped under it. So no. 1, 2, 3, 4. No. 1, 2, 3. No. 1. No. So the answer is no. In this entire consolidation that started back in March, since Bitcoin made its all-time high, we have never spent this amount of time above these key moving averages. Now, is everything about moving averages? No, it's not. This is just these are just points that go into the probability column, combined with what I just shared with you on my interpretation of the dominance chart on Tether, to formulate what I believe is the highest probability of what's coming next. Okay, and so here we are. What do we test this week? What do we test? Well, let me zoom in. We tested that 5 EMA, right? Like no surprise. There aren't a lot of accidents in technical analysis, right? We've got that 5 test, and now we're simply consolidating towards the end of this range, right? I mean, basically, that's just one big range. Spring, you got a test, you got a last point of support, and now, for all intents and purposes, you could even call this a sign of strength type of move. but the gist of what I'm attempting to share here is this type of price action as it relates to the moving averages, we have not seen in this consolidation period until now. That's bullish. What do we see with this trend line? I see a lot of different interpretations. That's all they are, is interpretations. Right now, from a candle wick perspective, we are still clearly, we clearly have some resistance, right? We clearly have some resistance. If we take a look at it from a different perspective, and let me get rid of these moving averages and just look at candle closes, so weekly closes, or the body of the candle, if we had that up. Let's see what's going on. We're breaking out and we're currently retesting, okay? We're breaking out and we're currently retesting. That's the current status of the market. A breakout and retest. And I almost favor this interpretation. Why? Because of what trumps everything in terms of the most accurate state of the price action. When I look at the candles versus the line, so the closes versus the wicks, are two things, and that is those moving averages, as well as what I have shown down here at the bottom of my screen, which is the power behind the move, the RSI. What is this yellow line? This is a moving average. This yellow line down here. And so we see since April, we broke down below the moving average, right? Rejection, rejection, rejection. In September, we broke out, okay? We broke out above, we got a retest on that moving average, and now we are consolidating above it. Remember this chart I showed here? This is the USDT dominance chart. Let me get rid of that. Get rid of this. Let me get rid of this. Let me make this larger. What's going on here? It's the opposite, right? Where we had a breakdown as it relates to the moving average on RSI, and now we're consolidating below it, folks. So it's almost the opposite of what we see going on with the actual Bitcoin price chart, and that's beautiful. And that's just beautiful. So there you go. So multiple things that are kind of giving me confluence in terms of my ideas and my probabilities and why I'm so bullish on major breakout coming next. Major breakout coming next, in my opinion. All right, now we're back to the daily chart. And again, there's nothing but bullish price action that's going on right now and has been since August. What do I mean by that? Well, my interpretation here in terms of a kind of a Elliott wave count is, we had this spring, and then we had a three-wave move to create this first impulse. And again, folks, I understand, the true Elliott wave impulsive movements are five-legged moves. However, I do believe we have seen three-legged moves within impulses, and I've shared that in the past in terms of examples of that. I'm not going to get into that today, but I believe we have our first impulsive movement. We had an ABC that came back to the 236, 236 retracement level of this first wave, and then we're making your minor one, and then you had an ABC that came back to the 0.5 retracement. So 236 deeper, 0.5 shallower, and now I think we're working on another a sub one. Either two is in, or potentially we made a B wave at the end of last week, and maybe we've got one more C before three. Either way, we have a situation where the dips are getting shallower and shallower and shallower the further along what I'm calling reaccumulation and the end of a reaccumulation event. And so that, again, is just bullish price action. That's bullish price action. And so where we are today, again, like I said, this is my primary interpretation on the lower time frame. I believe, it's either we're coming out of this sub 2, going for a 3, 4, 5, or, this is an A, B, and then we have one more move down potentially. Where could that where could that move retrace to? Let's see. The 618 would take it to 65,306. That's where we came down on Wednesday. The 618. I suppose it could be a flat correction if we still do have some downside. This is just speculation. It could, you could also get down to 64,052 for a 50% retracement. But again, I'm just speculating here. I have no idea whether this correction, this low time frame correction is over or not in my overall thesis of expansion that I believe is coming next. We're going to find out. Actually, one more thing here. Let me throw up the Bollinger Bands. Let me get rid of RSI. Just more confluence in these ideas. Let's just take a look at these Bollinger Bands. And so what do we see? What do we also see here in this last check back? Well, let's look at the last two checkbacks. Okay, so last two checkbacks, we can see top end of the Bollinger Band, and then this midline, the 20 of the Bollinger Band, basically the 20 moving average, didn't hold, and we revisited the bottom end of this, the Bollinger Band. We got a reclaim of this 20, top end of the range. We didn't hold on this next correction, this 20, and ultimately came down to test the bottom end of this Bollinger Band. Whereas now we're top end of the Bollinger Band, we came back and this 20 has held so far. And so again, a case can be made for the character of this correction is different than this one, as well as this one. Combine that with what I shared on the weekly chart, USDT chart. And so, that's just another point of confluence for me as well. We shall find out. MicroStrategy closed at the highest price that has ever been since it put Bitcoin on its balance sheet in August of 2020. This is a weekly chart. RSI on the weekly chart is now closed right at 70, overbought. I want to see it get into overbought. And so anything decisive here for me? No, not really. This is just a beautiful, beautiful move. Are we going to get a check back before resumption? We're going to find out. Anything from the past can tell us anything? Well, let's see. Back here, we approached that 70. The next week was red prior to, another 30% move the following 4 weeks. Back in July of 2023, that was the beginning of an ABC correction that lasted for a few months. So for what that's worth, February 2024, again, here's another area where we approached that 70 RSI. Right here, the following week was flat, and then price went from 70 to 178 in the following 3 weeks. And so not a lot, I think, can be surmised in terms of, what may happen next week or the week after. From that, I think just some different scenarios to be aware of, given where we are with the power of this move. The Bitcoin miners denominated in Bitcoin has never looked as bullish as it does now. And that's from a market structure standpoint. So again, this is the Bitcoin miner ETF, WGMI, denominated in Bitcoin since the inception of this ETF back in February 2022. Basically, we have, just this giant range, right? This channel that's sloping down. And long term, in my opinion, the Bitcoin miners lose value against Bitcoin. That's why Bitcoin's my largest holding. And that's why I only hold Bitcoin miners during expansive phases in the market, which I believe we're in right now. Now, there can be some major periods of outperformance against Bitcoin, right? Major periods of outperformance, like we saw in these areas, right? Where you get, 6 months, a year, 6 months, 6 months of outperformance in these swing areas. And so what do we see historically in the market structure of this weekly chart. You have a first established high, then you have a lower high, then you have a lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high. And for the first time, and this again, this isn't confirmed until, technically this is broken here. We have a higher low, okay? We have a higher low. So we'd be looking for kind of a break in market structure, a change of character. Here, we do have a break in this cloud, and in this cloud that's very, very thick, that's red. We're in it right now. And so I think the highest probability, or what this potentially is leaning towards, in my opinion, is a period of massive outperformance from the Bitcoin miners, to the tune of, at least my expectation would be a move to the top end of this channel, which would potentially represent, should it come to fruition, a outperformance of potentially, if Bitcoin doubles, you're looking at a 2 to potentially 2 to 3x move in some of these miners, maybe more. I take that back. If Bitcoin were to double with this outperformance, you're looking at a 3 to potentially 4 or 5x move in some of these miners. So very, very bullish look in that chart. Folks, that's it for the analysis for the weekend. I hope everyone has a great rest of your weekend. Look forward to doing more of these, and take care.